Tonight on Pia.
We got into the fertility game.
I thought we were single-handedly keeping the fertility industry alive.
Well, they've done a lot of studies with identical twins.
My adoptive parents had already adopted my older sister a year before.
Had very, very different backgrounds and child-rearing experiences. They end up the same.
No one else wants the kid. Yeah, we'll take her, you know.
This is going to be fun. I think every child has a moment in their growing up when they look around at their family and they wonder if maybe they were adopted and nobody told them. I know when I was a hypersensitive adolescent, I was wondering whether I'd been acquired rather than birthed into this family of aliens that lived around me. Sorry, Mom. Of course, that was nonsense. All I had to do was look in the mirror to prove my genetic position in the family, check out the rather elegant nose, and then my father's nose was absolutely identical. So much for the adoption theory. Well, the adoption scene has changed a lot in Canada. With our more liberal abortion laws, there are in fact fewer and fewer babies available for childless couples to adopt. So more people are going international, choosing to expand their family with children from other races and other cultures. This is the story you will hear from Vancouver acting couple Jennifer Clement and Clement-Gale. They're very typical of their generation, very highly motivated professionals, dedicated to their careers and to their relationship. And then in their mid-30s, they start thinking, well, maybe we should try having a baby now before it's too late. And then using our incredible fertility technologies, they find out that maybe it's not as simple as all that. But first, meet Vancouver's reigning queen of punk rock, Bif Naked. She was born in New Delhi to a very young, unmarried Canadian mother and a British father, and taken in by an American missionary couple when she was just a few days old. She's very candid about her adoption story.
My biological parents were teenagers, and it's very common, you know, for anyone who's ever done missionary work or worked abroad and has kids as well. They usually have a community of the same type of people where they would all send their kids to be schooled. And my birth mom attended the missionary high school, I guess. And there she met a little English kid. And, you know, as luck would have it, I came to be. And she was 16 at the time her parents were, I'm going to assume, thinking pragmatically and not trying to, I guess, enshroud her in shame or anything, but my little happy place that I need to think of it from is that they were just forward thinking.
I was approaching 40 and it really just became one of those things. We went through we got into the fertility game.
I thought we were single-handedly keeping the fertility industry alive until I talked to a friend the other day who said, because I think we did 6 or 7 attempts.
Different
sort of fertility avenues, but I was talking to a friend the other day and he said, oh yeah, we did in vitro 10 times.
Oh my Lord.
My adoptive parents had already adopted my older sister a year before. So I always say to my dad, you're pegged as a sucker. You're already pegged as a sucker because you already got one stray puppy. And then they said, we have another stray puppy. You know, you interested? And my dad jokes around, he says that they wrote them a letter back and said, if no one else wants the kid, yeah, we'll take her, you know. But, you know, try and find somewhere else. If no one will take her, we'll take her. And I think, yeah, it's kind of like being in a shelter. It's funny. But 6 days after I was born, they drove from Bareilly to New Delhi and came and picked me up.
When we finally, you kind of realize sometimes when you knock on doors and nothing's opening, and then you make a shift. And the minute we started down the, oh, this cry, I get so excited. The minute we went on the adoption path, the doors just opened.
They flew open.
It was such a wonderful ride for us, adoption. it was just from beginning to end, the people we worked with here at Sunrise locally, and then we made a huge decision to go internationally to Korea. And now when I think of our son Max, I can't think of any other child that would be for us. And it really, he's just a huge gift, and it's just been a joy, a real joy.
Are we shaped more profoundly in our lifelong character by genetics or upbringing? The evidence for both sides seems inconclusive. So, as in most of life's big questions, no doubt the truth lies somewhere in between.
I didn't grow up in a very physically demonstrative house, and I'm a very huggy person. You know, I'm lovey-dovey. I love sentiments, expressions. I've never been a holding back kind of person, which totally betrays my upbringing completely. And I can't say that's a genetic thing. Perhaps some, you know, loving shrink will tell me one day that it's overcompensation. I'm not sure. My parents were very conservative, very involved in the church. My mother, with whom, you know, I'm still in love, is a very quiet, shy, polite to a fault Minnesota girl who doesn't wear makeup, who doesn't dress inappropriately ever, and that's basically the environment I was raised in, which is much more polite probably than what I would have been experiencing growing up in my birth mom's arms. To be able to sit here and go, that's environmental and that's genetic, is something that causes me a bit of amusement, for sure.
Well, they've done a lot of studies of with identical twins, you know, who have the same genes, who are reared separately, and have had very, very different backgrounds and child rearing experiences. They end up the same. It seems that child rearing is not nearly as important as we used to think it was. The suggestion, at any rate, of some of this work was that genes make up about 50% of what happens to a person in their development. Another 40% maybe comes from their peers, and then maybe 10% from their parents.
I look at my brother and his wife, and I see, well, why did they have the success raising their kids? Because their kids are amazing. And I honestly think because they are just darn good parents. They are totally immersed in their children's lives, although they both work. You know, and it's very interesting. They do everything together as a unit, and the communication is very straightforward, very honest, very open. It reminds me of my upbringing a lot.
In these enlightened times, open adoption seems to be the norm, and that does seem to be a better situation overall. The birth mothers and involved fathers are able to keep some connection to their child based on negotiations with the adopting family. But it wasn't always like this. Historically, adoption was a closed issue. When a woman gave up her child, she knew that in all likelihood she would never see that child again. And bear in mind, this would be an underage teenage mother with no facility to raise a child and under a lot of pressure from family and society to do the right thing. In Bif's case, although the identity of her birth parents was kept under lock and key, eventually she was able to discover both her birth parents, with mixed results.
You know, I was a habitual runaway when I was a teenager, and I think that was, besides just the regular selfish teenager sense of entitlement, defiance thing, I think that it was me being, you know, a traveling kind of adventurer and a bit of a wanderer. And I still am to this day. And so I've been fortunate. My job has enabled me to travel. But I was lost, and I was kind of seeking, like a lot of teenagers will do. And I started, of course, this fantasy remained that it had to be Sophia Loren or some type of, you know, glamorous woman living in Monte Carlo. Of course it was, you know, with a big hat and, you know, lots of fluttering eyelashes. And so I started writing letters to the High Commission for Canada in New Delhi, determined, you know, hello, I am but a lowly lost lamb looking for my birth mother. I was born on this date, and I was born in this hospital in this New Delhi suburb, and if you have any information, da-da-da. And I mean, this was years, and it was probably 2 years later, or maybe even 3, out of the blue. I'd already, you know, dropped out of the ballet conservatory, and I'd already, you know, barely managed to make it through my senior year of high school with the amount of times I had run away. We got a letter back from them through, I guess, I can't remember for sure, but it was a family services agency in Winnipeg. And they called and said, she's contacted us. Your birth mom has contacted us. We have a letter here for you from her. So by that time I was like hand-wringing, because I had stolen documents out of my father's filing cabinet to access the information of where to send my letters. So now it was, I had to confess to them that I'd basically, you know, jimmied the lock and, you know, done all these horrible things. My father has a huge sense of humor, so all was forgiven. And my parents bought me a ticket to go and meet her in the Toronto airport. It was Pearson. And I spent, I think, 3 or 4 days with her and her family. At that time, they lived in Barrie. And I think she was on her 3rd husband at that time. So, and I meet this woman, and there's this little woman. I would guess she's probably 5'4". And her eyes were the biggest, greenest, biggest saucers I'd ever seen in my life, ever. Massive fish lips, big green eyes, and just this, you know, it was just this look of wonder on her face, like, and there was no question. It wasn't like, are you so-and-so? No, it was like right away, you know, and she said, I would like to get a drink. And I said, okay. I mean, I was like, whatever I was old enough. And we had 2 rusty nails and 2 cigarettes. And she gave me my rose, or whatever it was. And we hadn't even left the airport. We sat at one of the airport bars and had a drink. And just sat down and just had a drink. And it was very, to me, in hindsight, it was very funny. And it's an endearing memory. Having met and spent time with my birth mom, she did give me the name of, this is your birth father's name, this is your biological father's name. She told me his name, and at that time, my manager had a computer, I did not. And so I don't even know if Google was available then. I don't know how he would have searched for it, but he found an individual with the same name. and contacted him via an email and said, you know, is this the same so-and-so who attended the mission school in New Delhi and, you know, this year and this and that? And the guy wrote back right away, absolutely. You know, how, you know, what can I do? Who is this? What's going on? And he wrote back and said, well, you know, there's a baby girl born this year. This was, you know, her birth mother's name, and right now that baby is an adult woman, and we're looking for medical history because she's just discovered that her biological mother is adopted and there's no medical history available to her. So this was like mid-90s. And well, the gentleman wrote back extremely upset and disturbed that he was harassed in this way, and said that he absolutely would not help my manager, and I mean, it was quite defensive. And I, of course, felt terrible. I felt just mortified, horrified. I felt so bad. And I just thought, obviously, he has a wife and family, has never told anybody, whatever the case, and I felt so guilty. I asked my manager to just not contact him again and just leave it be. I felt too badly for him. And that could, again, I'm a shrink stream, that could speak to my own you know, feelings of worth or whatever it is, but I have never contacted him again. But I do follow him on Twitter, which is very funny because he's just so dry. And I just think, come on. He's very dry. He's very English. He's very dry. He's a businessman. And it's a business, obviously a business marketing thing that they've got. And he's very dry. Meeting my birth mother was an instant visual recognition, and just so similar. We look so much alike. It doesn't look to me like I got anything from him. And so I kind of go, are you sure? Are you sure it's him? Couldn't he be like, you know, some terribly fabulous man from Bahrain or something?
Adoption raises so many issues of identity, family connectivity, and individuality. So whether our families are genetically linked or culturally created, the one common ground is love, hopefully. Here to make sense of it all for us is a member of our own family, Patrick Maliha.
I don't know what it is, but whenever I turn on the news these days, I hear about how out of control children are. For some reason, my generation, Generation X, now that we're entering our 40s, we got this bizarre revisionist history where we think we were perfect and the children of today are the ones who are having a problem. When did we become our parents? I've got news for you. You know what the problem is with today's kids? The parents! I actually heard somebody at the playground the other day talk about how it was better when you could beat your children. Are you kidding me? Don't you remember? We weren't the ones doing the beating. We were the ones who were getting beat. I don't remember that being such a good time. And you think you grew up perfect? Why don't you just hop into the DeLorean, take Doc Brown, go back to '86, tell me how perfect you were when you stole the liquor from your dad's cabinet and you were puking behind the high school gym when you got crushed by that girl who said, no, I don't want to dance with you because your nose is too big. Oh my God, I'm acting out. We were all turds when we were younger. That's just the way it is. It's the rebelling of youth. Timeout is the way to go. But the reason why people don't like to do timeout is because it's difficult. My kid cries, he complains, he throws a tantrum. Well, you know what? You know why he's doing that? Because it's unpleasant. They're being punished. That's the way it's supposed to work. Beating your kids was easy and quick. Our dads and moms, they had things to do. They had to go to key swapping parties or wherever the hell it was that they did. I'm telling you right now, if Lindsay Lohan had gotten a proper timeout, you wouldn't hear her complaining about how she doesn't get bottled water in jail. It's jail. It's supposed to teach you a lesson. You're not supposed to like it when you're getting punished. You're supposed to learn from it. And that's the one thing that I think that we as parents need to learn. We need to learn that it's okay to be firm yet fair. Now it's no longer about you. It's about them. The last time I checked, the parents who were friends of their children were creepy. And if you want to be creepy, go ahead and raise yourself a little Lindsay Lohan. I'll be the guy raising a kid who's doing really well and making me a lot of money.
I'm just grateful we don't have a child that's biologically ours. When I think about our combination, I think, well, it works when we're in separate bodies, but I don't know how it would have worked if it was all in one. So, and Max is like this balancing soul for us in that way, and you realize how much the children teach you and give you, and I think that's been, I mean, to see Vince with Max, to me, is just one of my biggest joys in life.
It's neat that that I've always been able to talk to my kids, and they feel free to talk back. Sometimes the things they say I maybe don't want to remember my son saying many times, "Dad, you don't want to hear about this. Dad, you don't want to watch this." So you know, so they try to protect me in certain things. But it's great. I have a great relationship with both of my kids, and it's fun spending time with them.
This little tiny one here was my first tattoo. It's the only one I ever intended to get. And I called my mother from a payphone after I gotten it done and said, "Mommy, I got a tattoo." And she's quiet. And like she always says, with a big sigh, she says, "Well, Beth, get it out of your system." And I'm like, "Okay, just thought I'd let you know, Mom." You know, poor thing. I say the same thing to her, whether I have tried my first street drug or lost my virginity or whatever it was. My mother did not ask for my honesty. You know, she didn't want it half the time. And nowadays we laugh about it because now, you know, as I, you know, head smiling into my 40s, I kind of go, man, why would it occur to me to call my mother and say, "Mom, do you know what a blowjob is?" You know, when I was a teenager, or go, you know, just that, and I just think, oh, this poor girl, you know, no wonder she'd lay up at night wringing her hands. Where did I go wrong with this child? And there's me laughing or yelling at her, you know, or poor woman. And the tattoos was the same thing.
You can't replace parents. And so we constantly monitor the time that they spend on the computer. Probably don't monitor it well enough. We've gone through the growing pains of, you know, where do you allow them to have a computer down in their room or that sort of thing. And right, the setup we have now is that from the kitchen you can see the computer screen that they're working on. Even having it in the next room but around the corner, you never know, you know, what they're going to be using it for. So we don't have any video games. We homeschool. The kids are very well socially adjusted. The whole thing about, well, what about their socialization? Well, with 9 kids, they don't have to worry about socialization. There's always a bunch of people in there, and you have to learn how to get along.
The thing that I just find so strange nowadays, though, and so hard for all the parents, is it's so ironic in a way that at the same time that both parents start working and have busy lives and are encouraged to have busy lives, at the same time, we're not letting the children have their own lives. Everything they do is scheduled and organized. You know, they can't go play. You know, God knows we went and played. Yeah, we played baseball all day. We played hockey all day, but we made up the rules. I am really amazed that they are a lot less promiscuous than we were. We didn't have all that kind of bombardment with TV shows with women with fake breasts with their boobs out. I mean, there was that very clear differentiation between Playboy and then regular women. You know, that there were the sex symbols and then there were the ordinary women, whereas that's all blurred for our girls. But they don't seem to be as promiscuous as we were. Maybe it was because it was such a novelty for us that we were all rebelling against our parents. But the friends of mine that have got 15, 16-year-old daughters, they have boyfriends, they haven't been having sex. They're not taking hard drugs. We seem to be terrified that they're going to, and they don't seem to be. They're not drinking the way that we did when we were 14, 15, 16.
So it's really interesting. They seem to, maybe it's because they've been completely overloaded with all this information and they've seen the Lindsay Lohans and the Britney Spears and all these celebrities completely falling apart, that they're not doing that. Whereas for us, we were that generation where, well, for me it was punk, and so it was all very exciting and it was rebelling against my mother's Frank Sinatra records, and so I wanted to go out and have sex, and I wanted to go and get drunk, and I wanted to go off and, you know, shave half my hair off and all that sort of thing, and they don't seem to have that, and I think that's really commendable.
Our 14-year-old, who is very much into Taekwondo, loves listening to opera overtures and Strauss waltzes. You know, so he'll be out painting the side of the house, and he has his MP3 player there plugged into speakers, and he's listening to Strauss. And I have to go out and turn it down. I says, you know, that's really good music, but I'm not so sure the neighbors want to hear it that much.
In tonight's look at climbing down the family tree, we've learned a lot about adoption, nature versus nurture, and how much our parents influence our character and our futures, whether adopted or biological. And we've bonded with some of our own celebrities and learned the realities of their approach to that most powerful of human bonds, the love between a parent and child. I'm Pia Shandel. Thanks for being with us.